I like 5G. It's fast, it's reliable, and did I mention that it's super goddamn fast? So why do other people seem to hate it so much? And to find out just that, I did what nobody else dared. Research. Research into cutting edge questions like, is 5G giving me cancer? Or is the government using it to control my mind? And most importantly, should I be firebombing vital telecommunications infrastructure based on information I found on Facebook? Now, for this bit, I was supposed to have like tinfoil on my head, but I couldn't be bothered to go to the store, so a tortilla would have to do. Anyway, this research took me to some pretty strange places. Some people seem to be making a lot of money from the 5G hate train, and even more seem like they're in serious emotional and physical pain. So I pose the question, are these just insane conspiracy theorists projecting their mental illness on what is current day technology? Or is there something more to their beliefs? That's why we'll be looking at how 5G works, the alleged health risks it creates, and the groups behind the attacks on these towers. And asking the question, is it worth losing your life in the fight against faster internet speeds? Okay. So, how did all this 5G stuff even start? Well, it's 2020, and I'm not sure if you heard, but a very important event happened. Taylor Swift canceled her Lovers tour. The world shut down for some reason. So, people who are not necessarily scientists started looking for answers on Facebook. Connecting the dots, asking the tough questions, following the breadcrumbs to figure out what the CIA was really doing on 9/11. And along comes this guy named Thomas Cohen, and on a YouTube live stream, he correctly states that cities hit the hardest by COVID-19 also had 5G networks rolled out to them. And this makes sense because big cities usually get the newest technology first. Big cities also have higher population density, more public transport, and more people crammed together. I think you see where I'm going here. But that's not what Thomas was saying at all. He claimed that 5G is directly responsible for the spreading of COVID-19. And his evidence, it's bulletproof. Back in 2020, there was a place called Africa, and they didn't have very much of a 5G network. And during this fine year, Africa also reported low COVID numbers. Taking this groundbreaking information, Thomas crunched the numbers, did his science, and with a Jimmy Neutron-ass brainwave, concluded that 5G was causing the pandemic. No editor notes on that one. So after Thomas suggests this live on YouTube, the video literally goes viral, garnering 600,000 views overnight, being posted and shared all over Twitter, Facebook, and many other social media sites. And it wasn't just the tinfoil hat crowd falling for this, let's be honest, flaccid at best correlation. Before YouTube and Twitter had a chance to really crack down on it, Thomas' theory was tweeted out by none other famous singer Carrie Hilson, further spreading the claim that 5G was causing the spread of COVID. She later deleted that post. On a completely unrelated note, or maybe not, Thomas Cohen, the man who started the 5G conspiracy theory, had his medical license to practice in California put on probation back in 2017. Why, you ask? Because he gave a patient who was battling one of the most deadliest cancers known to man an unproven and experimental drug, no pretest or exams. And here's the wild thing. According to the board decision, the patient had no idea what the drug was or what the drug even did, completely skipping over informed consent. Thomas never got his license back. Doesn't seem like he really wanted it either. He moved out of California and now sells unregulated vitamins in upstate New York. So you come to your own conclusions on this situation. So what actually is 5G? At its core, 5G relies on something called the electromagnetic wave to transmit data wirelessly, just like its predecessors 4G, 3G, 2G, even 1G, EM waves are a type of energy that travels through space, and they include everything from visible light to X-rays and radio waves, depending on their wavelength. Ultimately, electromagnetic waves are electric and magnetic fields that oscillate back and forth. Electromagnetic waves have been used in wireless communication for over a century, growing with us and becoming more capable as humanity grows. So, how do we cram a meme into a wave, launch it on a 1,000-mile journey, only to have it pop out on the other side of the globe ready to offend someone? To break this down, let's imagine you have a flashlight and you want to send a message to your friend using Morse code. To send a message, you turn the flashlight on and off in specific patterns of short and long flashes to symbolize dots and dashes. Your friend who sees these flashes writes them down and uses a Morse code chart to translate the patterns into letters and numbers. This act of translation is what we call decoding. Now, for example, let's say your friend with his flashlight shines a short flash followed by a long flash. You could then look at the Morse code chart and decode that he sent the letter A in Morse code. And boom, you have conveyed information. Cell phone towers, just like our friend with a flashlight, use a similar method to transmit data. But instead of dots and dashes, you have zeros and ones. And instead of visible light like a flashlight, they use radio waves, which, if you remember from the electromagnetic wave chart from earlier, visible light is also a type of electromagnetic wave. Your phone, constantly on the lookout, sees a cell phone tower like a digital lighthouse. It then captures these signal pulses, or flashes, from the tower. Your phone, faster than you can blink, quickly decodes the message using a language kind of like Morse code, but way more complex. This decoded language then builds on all the calls, texts, videos, and whatever else you might be looking at your phone. I'm sorry, I just find that electromagnetic waves are beautiful and are a fascinating product of our reality. I mean, we are literally monkeys who taught sand how to do math and to speak in energy frequencies that we can't even see ourselves. 5G, particularly the millimeter wave variety, uses a higher frequency radio wave compared to 4G and 3G. These higher frequencies allow 5G to transmit data faster because of how much smaller the wavelength is. Increasing the frequency of a radio wave is kind of like decreasing the font size on a sheet of paper. Because of the decreased size, you can now write a lot more words on the same sheet of paper. But this higher frequency comes with a trade-off. 5G millimeter waves have a harder time pushing through walls and buildings. In human terms, when we use higher frequencies and decrease the font size to fit more information on it, it also becomes harder to read from afar. Standing behind a brick wall, your phone's 5G signal would be weaker than if you were using 4G. So Thomas Cohen's theory that 5G can spread viruses is not possible. 5G signals are like invisible light. They can't carry physical things. Viruses, on the other hand, are tiny physical particles that are just little protein sacs filled with genetic material. A virus can't travel on radio waves any more than a germ could ride a laser beam. But I can hear you asking, are all electromagnetic waves safe for humans? No, they're not. EM waves can sometimes, in fact, be dangerous. Electromagnetic waves are lumped into two flavors when it comes to safety: ionizing radiation and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation are electromagnetic waves that have enough energy to mess with matter by knocking off electrons from the atoms. This is the stuff you gotta worry about, health-wise. EM waves with extremely short wavelengths, like X-rays or gamma rays, can burn your skin and damage your DNA, which has been shown to cause cancer. But don't worry, cell phone towers do not put out anywhere near short enough wavelengths to ionize your DNA and rip off your beautiful electrons. EM waves start to become ionizing and dangerous around 2.5 million gigahertz, which is nowhere near the current maximum frequency of 5G millimeter wave. Millimeter wave's frequency top is only 47 gigahertz. That means you would need a frequency that is over 53,000 times more powerful than 5G before it starts ripping off electrons of your silky, beautiful skin. Now, this doesn't mean that you could just lock yourself in a room with a ton of non ionizing radiation. With high enough energy levels, it can have adverse effects by a thing called tissue heating. Tissue heating is when your muscle tissue absorbs the energy and progressively gets hotter and hotter. Don't worry about 5G heating your tissue when you're out and about. The levels of non ionizing radiation needed to see these effects are far beyond what you experience using a cell phone or cell phone network by orders of magnitude. So, as time goes on and more studies show that there are little to no negligible effects on humans, all while bringing in so many benefits, why are people still so against it? Here's where it gets weird. In the May of 2020, over in Quebec, 4 cell phone towers were set ablaze. And it turns out they weren't even 5G towers, which I'm going to be honest, I understand that identifying 5G towers can be really tricky at times to spot. But don't worry, dear viewer, I've gathered a few pictures, for example, and trust me, you're going to want to look really close at the minute details. Otherwise, you will miss that it's a cell phone tower. Is this a tree or is it a 5G tower? Type your comments in below. Actually, the cactus one is pretty tough. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I thought I was gonna be like an absurdly huge cacti, but like, no, the Saccaro cactus can actually grow up to 40 feet tall. So, like, this just kind of works. Anyway, during the height of the virus in April of 2020, there were an astonishing 50 attacks. That is just 1 month in UK, not including other attacks that happened anywhere else. And it's just shocking just how widespread these incidents are. This is clearly not just an American issue. With it being so widespread, I knew that there had to be a place where these people were gathering, and I found it. It was Facebook. There are tons of anti 5G Facebook groups, and they are pretty active, with most of them having daily posts and discussions dating all the way to the pandemic. Now, to Facebook's credit, 5 years ago, they did announce that they were cracking down on these 5G groups, as they were the breeding grounds for a lot of the attacks on the cell phone towers around the world. I've seen a lot of these banned groups, some were banned while I was doing research for this video, and they just picked up shop, traveled over to Telegram or WhatsApp, where they continue to thrive. So at that point, you're just kind of playing whack-a-mole. So what do you get once you're accepted into one of these sacred Facebook groups? You get blasted, not just with 5G waves, but with some of the most batshit posts you might have ever had the pleasure of witnessing. We're talking gang stalking, transhumanism, COVID vaccine conspiracies, satanic cabals, feasting on babies, pseudoscientific studies, surprisingly beautiful artwork, handy self-protection tips against 5G, and of course, the ever-looming New World Order. Most of the anti-5G message board posts reference other conspiracy theories. But what was even more clear, though, was that most of the posters in these groups were not mentally healthy. They share memes and infographics that they believe themselves to be targeted individuals or victims of cyber torture, where they believe 5G towers beam forming technology that it used to talk directly to your cell phone, instead being used to target them and slowly 5G beam fry their brain. And as someone who's going to be a doctor, it hurt my soul reading these posts in the groups. There are people who are truly experiencing symptoms of schizophrenia, anxiety, and other mental health disorders from their everyday experiences. For instance, here's an infographic that I saw posted over and over again across various anti-5G messaging boards, not just Facebook. First off, let me just say, whoever made this infographic or feels connected to it, I'm genuinely sorry someone was rude to you in public. I mean, sometimes people can just be assholes. Second, I had no idea what street theater even was before diving into this. It turns out it's the belief that everything happening around you when you go into public is orchestrated by federal agents or shadow governments themselves. That car accident that you just passed on the side of the road, That was planted there by the shadow government. The lonely jogger making their way down the street, that's definitely a shadow government agent if I've ever seen one. And that Canadian goose just beating the crap out of the mailman, you're absolutely right. That's just a government drone trying to snatch your hard earned Social Security check. But you remember how I said people believe that they were being gang stalked? Well, those in the anti 5G community sometimes believe they are on one of these government stalking and cyber torture lists. And it's heartbreaking, honestly, because here's the unfortunate truth. When you have vulnerable, fragile people, it's never long before the absolute lowlifes, the scum of the scum, show up to prey on the vulnerable. And what I saw over and over again were ads for people claiming that they had access to these so-called big tech and government gang stalking or cyber torture lists, which don't entirely exist, by the way. And worse, they'd promise to remove people from these imaginary lists for what could sometimes be thousands of dollars, robbing people of what could be their life savings when all they need is a psychiatrist, love, and support. This isn't the stopping point either. Due to the political scene and the flurrying of conspiracy theories, this has culminated, unfortunately, in many incidents of cell network workers being harassed by the anti 5G community. Some even were shot at when they were just trying to do their jobs. And that's not okay. When I first started researching 5G towers for this video, I thought that I could poke fun at the anti 5G community, but honestly, I can't. Not because they're right, because they're victims. Victims of their own delusions, desperately seeking help from an enemy they can't see, like their own mental illness. And what makes my blood boil even more is knowing that there are people out there who exploit this. People who prey on others' mental illness for money instead of helping them get the care and support that they so desperately need. Keeping yourself healthy. There's no easy way on how to prevent yourself from becoming a conspiracy theorist. We've all believed in a conspiracy theory at some point. I mean, whenever I was 16, I was absolutely convinced that the pyramids were built by aliens because, like, the guy with the cool hair on the History Channel said so. Putting my naive teenage self aside, conspiracy theories tend to develop, especially when something strange actually happens. Whenever I mean strange, I mean not black or white. The world is tricky and complex, and it doesn't really fit into a perfect box of our biases, the categories that we use to simplify things in our own everyday lives. The real world can be incredibly complex, all while being incredibly boring and not exciting at all. I get why people want something that is crazy exciting and super simple to understand. It just makes life interesting and more easy to follow. There's a paper in the European Psychiatry Journal by W. Vling. If I'm pronouncing his name wrong and you're watching this, I'm sorry, bro. I'm dyslexic. He and his team dive into what makes conspiracy theories so addicting to humans. They theorized 3 reasons why it scratches that itch for people. Control. Our world is chaotic and unpredictable, but conspiracy theories offer a comforting illusion of control. By believing they've uncovered hidden truths, people feel like they're regaining power over their environment, transforming from helpless bystanders to informed actors in some grand narrative. Psychologically, it's about clawing back that sense of control that they believe they lost, which makes sense, especially during COVID times with everything shut down, everybody had to stay inside, and many lost their jobs. So I understand why times like these would make people want to pull back some of that control that they lost. Uniqueness. Conspiracy theories give believers a sense of being special in a world where many feel overlooked or ordinary. By claiming to have secret knowledge, they elevate themselves to the status of enlightened insiders, standing out from the crowd and reclaiming that feeling of individual importance. Community. In an era of increasing social isolation, especially with the rise of the internet, Conspiracy theories create strong bonds among like minded individuals, particularly on social media. These groups often are tight knit and offer believers a sense of belonging and purpose, providing a space where they feel valued and understood in ways that they may not experience anywhere else in their lives. While they may offer some temporary comfort, it often just leads to more social isolation from those who are non believers. Life is beautiful, and the world is filled with amazing things to be excited and loving about. But it's also complex and sometimes confusing. It's okay not to have all the answers. What is important is to stay curious, keep learning, and approach information with a critical yet open mind. True empowerment comes from understanding the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. There is so much genuine wonder in this world. We don't need to invent mysteries to make life interesting. Until next time, I love you all. Bye.